You are the most important piece of infrastructure on your farm. And you maintain your bike, even if it's stupidly expensive and really annoying and you have to drive it hours to get it done. You're side by side, right? You maintain your bike, you maintain your tractor. You check on your electrics so that they're working, unless you're on our farm, which we haven't done since Gabriel. Sorry. You fix the latches on the gates that aren't latching. We need to look at our bodies as a piece of infrastructure, but the main piece of infrastructure, because it also holds the computer that has all of the information for how the farm is going to run. Yes, some of it's written down, but you can't write down that there's that little gully where there's a lamb that's always going to be hiding. So if your body can't physically do the job, then you're missing the main piece of infrastructure of your farm.
This podcast is brought to you by GroundShift. If you're anything like me, you've probably realised that doing things the way they've always been done doesn't always lead to better outcomes on the farm. And that's where GroundShift comes in. GroundShift is all about helping farmers rethink the way that they approach their soils, the inputs into their system, and improving their overall farm system performance. We focus on building resilience, improving efficiency, and ultimately creating more profitable farm systems. It's not always about throwing more into your system. Sometimes it's about understanding what's driving those results beneath the surface. So if you're serious about improving your farm's profitability and resilience, and utilising biology to drive your farm system performance, I highly recommend checking out groundshift.ag, and you can follow them online at groundshift.ag on Instagram. Welcome back to another episode of From the Soil Up podcast. Today's special guest is Storm Baynes-Ryan. You may know her as that farming physio, but she's also a sheep and beef farmer from the east coast of the North Island. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation because I think it's something that doesn't get spoken enough about when it comes to farming, is about actually looking after ourselves and particularly our bodies. So how are you today, Storm?
I am very well, thank you. We've got a sunny day. And this morning, earlier this week, I said I need to get more steps in. And then this morning, I get a phone call in the middle of my gym session saying there's bulls in the neighbours. So I got my steps in and the bulls are in. So I don't need to be worrying about whether they're in the neighbours. So I'm very well, thank you.
That's good. Good to hear you get that sorted, and also good to check those steps off for the day. I'm definitely lagging. So that's my kick up the butt to do that after this. So Storm, there's a tendency in farming culture to push through pain and avoid asking for help. Where does that come from? And if we keep ignoring that pain, what is that real cost over our farming career?
So where it comes from, I believe, is our deep-seated culture, which has come from both the people who lived in New Zealand originally who could not stop because they were a bit sore, because food would need to be stockpiled for winter. We couldn't just not grab food. And then once people came to New Zealand on the boats to farm here, there was no other option. We didn't have the luxury of having feelings or being able to stop. We were trying to break in land that was wild with no money, no certainty, and families that needed feeding. This is our background. This is our heritage. This is our history. Of course, we push through pain because this is what we've always done. Add to that World War I, World War II, and Vietnam. And that becomes a mix where there is not only hard work, but along with all of that heritage and all of that history, where we weren't given the ability or the luxury of having emotions after World War I and after World War II, and certainly for Vietnam, there was a real danger in letting emotions out and feeling those things, especially for people who went away to war. Now we know that PTSD is so real, but that the way that it was managed, and the way some people still suggest hideous things are managed, which you should not do, is to hide it and push it down. And so if we hide that, one way to hide our emotions is to work hard. But also we need to work hard so that we can succeed. So I think that's where it comes from. And then the long-term impact, say, of ignoring a cranky, let's say a knee. The knee that's irritated, if we say it's the meniscus, which is the shock-absorbing cartilage inside the knee, and that's a bit hot because it's got a little tear in it, but you can manage on it, but it's just a bit sore and it's a bit irritated and it's a bit inflamed. And that's not settling down day on day on day. It's like putting a ripe banana in the fruit bowl. The knee is encased in a synovium, in a capsule, and that inflammation isn't just sitting in the tear, it spreads. And so you can see changes like bony outgrowths and redness and irritation on scans, or even was with the surgeon the other day, and he was like, here's what was in the knee and here's what had happened because of the inflammation that's sitting there. And we get all these changes visible to the naked eye, let alone the microscopic changes, because that blood that's going to the knee is also traveling to your eyeballs and your toes and your brain. And so we're getting changes everywhere. So these are not even super long-term changes. And then those changes, injury is more likely to cause osteoarthritis than working hard. There's been studies done, and people who work in hard physical jobs have no higher rates of osteoarthritis in their back, knees and shoulders than just general population. They did this on bricklayers in Turkey. Who knew? Anyway, the higher risk is high inflammation in your body and general physiological issues, as well as high abdominal fat, because abdominal fat contains inflammatory things called adipokines, which are just inflammation that comes from your fat. And the fatter we are, the more inflammation our bodies carry. And that inflammation is irritating, and then that can cause osteoarthritis, which is why fat loss can be helpful for, say, hand osteoarthritis. Your osteoarthritis improves because you've got less inflammation in your body. That's the long answer.
Yeah, well, I did not know that. And that study comparing hard working, because I think most people would, particularly in farmers, would attribute, that osteoarthritis to being from the hard work, but maybe it's actually those underlying injuries that they think are just niggles, are just continuously working away at the body.
So I think that is probably the case, and for most people, is that it's always multifactorial.
Yeah. It's been an interesting journey for me is actually when I have allowed myself to rest, how much less achy like my joints and etc. are. Whereas I was working on the farm and then I would, go to the gym or go for big runs and just kind of hustled along. I guess I fell into the hustle culture as well for a bit. And now that I've allowed myself to rest, I've actually noticed my body has a lot less inflammation. And I get it's like those are starting to stack, and I actually can perform a lot better when I do any physical things now. And it's nice when you get out of the ute after a long day and the knees don't hurt or the back doesn't hurt.
Yeah. I see you see it all of the time. And recovery is so important, but it's not just lying on the couch.
Yeah, there's many active forms of recovery. In your experience, you obviously work with a lot of farmers. What are the most common physical breakdowns you're seeing?
So in older farmers, I'm seeing knees that need replacing. I'm seeing hips that need replacing. And this is making their lives a lot smaller and their capacity on the farm less. And while their mind is willing, their body is no longer capable. I find that incredibly sad, especially because possibly we could have changed something along the way if they'd had somebody who could listen to them and get them years ago. I see a lot of back injuries and disc injuries with nerve pain down the legs. Some of these need surgery. 97% don't, but some of them do.
Wow.
Interestingly, that has actually been linked to gut health and bacteria in some people. I haven't dived deep into that yet, but we do know that there is inflammation and chronic pain have a relationship with gut health and diet. What else I'm seeing? Knees from sheep in the race.
Yeah, I know that one all too well.
Yeah, and just shoulders, cranky shoulders, some rotator cuff tears, but sometimes just like tendinopathies, which is where the balance between healing and loading has just got out of whack, and the ability of the body to manage the capacity to tolerate the load has gotten out of balance, and the healing just can't keep up with the load that either went through it in a big rush or by having to, drench the lamps and then have to go through them again and vaccinate them because your mate wasn't there. So just like a tennis elbow type thing. So those are the things I see, but there's all sorts, lots of backs, lots of necks, lots of shoulders, knees, ankles, hips. Where's it sore?
Every time you said a different part of the body there, I could think of either my parents or their friends are all having replacements or surgeries now just from, I guess, working the land, and it's just what happens over that generation and maybe not fixing things. So before we get into things a bit deeper, could you give us a bit of an introduction on yourself and a bit about your background?
Yes. So I'm Storm. I've been a physio since 2002. I treat the whole human and not just pieces of anatomy. I farm, we've got 63 hectares of our own. It's hill country and flat in Te Kiraka near Gisborne. And we also have, we're just getting a few more lease blocks around. My husband is a helicopter pilot, but currently isn't working. He's done ag. And we have 4 children, aged 9 to 15. And they all play sport. So tonight we have 6 or 7 different sports that each person needs to go to. So I manage that. And I also make sure that I make time for myself to do lifting and exercise. And I was running the farm up until I came back to work full time. And my husband now runs the farm. And then I just come along and kind of might shift a mob or help in the yards, but I don't make any of the big decisions other than being a sounding board at the moment, because we've found it better for one person to be in charge and then the other person to be the sounding board rather than both of us making decisions.
That's very good boundaries. That could be a hard one. Did you find it hard stepping back from the decision making, or is it kind of embedded now?
I did, but what happened, Conan, was I was running the farm full time and homeschooling the kids, and I was rearing 150 feeder lambs. And it was cool. Everything was easy and fine. Then Gabrielle came and it was like the whole agricultural world just fell in the toilet. And we were suddenly up from we'd been told just to hold our interest rate and just wait and fix it because they were coming down at 6%. When it got to 10, I was like, we can't do this anymore. We can't be waiting for it to fall down. So we fixed it 10%, which was horrific. And then basically lamb shat itself, we were just starting farming. I had the most horrific illness in the lambs. I had 10% of my lambs die. I had lambs dying in the paddock to go on the truck the next day. They would just die. And it was horrible. And we were like, well, the whole point of the farm was that the farm was going to pay for itself. And my husband's wages were going to make our life exciting, but his wages were going straight into the farm and there was nothing left. So plus we needed to re-fence and reseed and had all the tracks fixed. And then about a month later, all the tracks got washed out again. And the money that we got it went on. It just wasn't enough. And so I stopped working as a physio. I'd attempted to go back and the physio board were hideous to work with, to the point where I was like, if you were my representatives, I don't want to work as a physio ever again. But I ran into a friend who actually works at the physio board and I was like, hey, look, this is what's happened. He was like, no, we actually want you. I don't know what's happened. Let's sort this out. So anyway, the person who made my life hideous, he's now gone from the physio board. I came back around to wanting to be a physio, re-registered, and because the trick was, it was 3, you could have 3 years off and then just come back without an issue. I had 3 years in 1 month and they were, there were issues, so we won't go into that. Yep. Anyway, I came back as a physio and it was to bring money back in. And then I was doing physio work and I was running the farm and I was homeschooling the kids on the days I was home, and my brain got too full to be able to do that. And one day he was like, Ginger was like, what are you doing with this mob? I was like, I just don't even remember where they are. So it was actually a really easy decision because animal health wise, I was like, I don't know where that mob is. My brain can't take another feed wedge. I've lost a whole feed wedge. I've lost a whole part of the farm in my brain because it's just too full. I was like, it's yours. I am done. So yeah, it would have been a really tricky decision if I'd had to make it to hand it over, but I just couldn't do it justice. And I'm here for animal health and for profitability. And if I can't work out where they're going next because I couldn't even remember that they were there because my brain was too full, it was just such an easy decision.
Yeah, I think that's actually quite an incredible point powerful story you're telling there is that I think a lot of farmers actually find themselves in this position where their brain is so full because there's so many things going on. There's actually some bravery in making that decision and saying and letting go and actually saying that I can't actually do all of this at once and being able to delegate that. But you obviously have taken that in your stride going forward.
I often say that the best decisions are not very easy. The right decision is not the easy decision. So it wasn't easy, but there was no other option. And I think the other thing is that because I am the mother, there's the expectation that I can do it all. And the reality is that something has to shit itself. And I didn't want it to be the kids or anything else. And Ginge was able to pick up the rest.
Yeah, and when you're working with farming, something does tend to shit itself. And that normally don't seem to be small things. They like to be a major, just to really chuck you on the back foot.
Yeah, and I didn't have the capacity. I had the capacity to do the shifts as they were expected. I had the capacity to do the animal health as it was planned. But if something got sick or the fences broke, there was no room in the system for me to do any of that. And that's how I kind of knew that it probably wasn't really a good time either.
Yeah. So for those people who are out there dealing with farmers or, neighbours talking to each other, how would someone actually recognise the signs that a farmer might be running on empty or maybe potentially in a similar situation?
I don't think they're going to tell you in so many words.
No.
And I think you have to look at them like you'd be looking for a crook animal. Mm-hmm. So there's little things that you see that you might not even be able to put to words, like, the amount of times you've gone, shit, I need to call the vet, or something is wrong and I don't know what it is, but you can see there's some patterns because you've been doing this for a long, long time, and you can see that the animal is, you're like, there's something wrong with that animal, and you're like, what's wrong? I don't know, but there's something wrong. And then you go, well, actually it's a little bit lame and its ears are down and its eyes are. So I think we need to look at humans a little bit more like a cornered animal. You just have to check how are they looking. So I think we look at like that tightness around the eyes. They might be either more talkative or less talkative than normal. The topics that you talk on and that they focus on are probably either going to be like the negative stuff, like you're just going to be like, oh, holy shit, I came away from that conversation feeling like that was not cool. Don't know what, like you don't even necessarily know what was wrong, but you're like, oh, that was a drag. Don't really want to spend time with them again. And then you're like, oh, hang on, why is that? What's that feeling coming from? So I think we need to be looking, and they might be even more chirpy than normal. You'd be like, that is weird because they are not like that. So I think we need to be looking at them like they're, looking at our mates, just do a quick check-in with them. You don't have to inspect them every time. But if you get the feeling that they're a little bit off, I think it's like, hey, have a look, have a think. And then there will always be something. If you pay attention, if you listen to the words that they are saying and the intonation, you will often get an inkling. If you're having a decent conversation, you'll get an inkling of something that's going on. There'll be a thread that just keeps popping up, or a set of words that tells you what is actually going on. And I think when you get to that, you can go, hey, it sounds like, and because I've said it, you're not over, like, hey, it sounds like you've, this really hard. This sounds like it's been really tough for you, or you sound really, really cross about this. Is everything okay? I think we need to be braver in our conversations with people, especially around feelings and mental health, because we weren't allowed to have feelings, right? So it's hard for us to do this. We can just acknowledge that. And you can be really shit at having these conversations as well, because you can't get good at something unless you practice. And I know that people regret when they weren't brave in these conversations because they were told that somebody didn't want to see them or didn't want to see anybody, and then they didn't make that call, and then that person didn't make it. And so I think you have to be really, really brave in making these conversations that feel awful. And as long as you come at it with kindness and compassion and not a blame. And I find that having conversations with people, and I am not excellent at this, but I find having conversations with people when I'm like curious, hey, I'm just checking on you because I notice that you're just not like you normally are. And I'm just wondering, are you feeling all right? You're just having a flat day. it's been going on for a little while. I don't know, that's a really shit way to say it, but you can give yourself permission to be there for people, even if you're not very good at it. I work dogs. God, that's not flash. The job gets done. Some of our fences are just temporary units since Gabrielle, which was 3 years ago, because the electrics are still stuffed. It still gets done. It might not look pretty, but the outcome's still the same. So I think we have to give ourselves permission to just be a little bit crummy at these things we don't know lots about.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not going to get good at it by not just avoiding the hard conversation. And it is that thing, and you don't want to regret not saying something. That's a feeling that lingers, and something you want to avoid.
If you offend them, who cares? At least they know somebody cares then. They might be pissed off with you, but that's not on you. You can't manage other people's feelings. You can not be a dick, obviously, but you can't manage other people's feelings.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And as soon as you're trying to do that, it's actually creating more angst on yourself and your own life.
Yeah.
So don't want to be doing that.
No.
So farmers are incredibly physically active generally, but is this the same as being fit and resilient?
No, but for the things they do every day. That's not fit.
Yeah.
Or it's not fitness. It's the capacity to do what you do every day, but there's nothing left in the system. And so if you say coming back to dogs, but if you say have somebody Struggle Mustang who's maybe me, who's like, oh, yeah, no, that dog's really old. She can't see those sheep and we didn't get them. We're back at the house and we can see them way back up there. And then you're like, well, the shearers are coming and nobody else can get up there. And then you straggle and you have to run double the stragglers over the board than you normally do. If you're not fit for that, then that's going to suck. And that takes away your capacity. So you might not hurt yourself when you're shearing, but you might be like putting on your boots the next day and then you might hurt because you don't reset at midnight. We're not Cinderella. And it all adds up. So we need to be fit for not just the things we do on a day-to-day basis, but fit for the things that might pop up. Like if a cow goes down, you want to actually be able to maneuver her around without incapacitating yourself at the same time. So no, I don't think that fitness is from farming. And the other thing is, I think because we're outside all the time, we think we're doing something. But very often when I'm on the farm, if I've got my step counter on, I'll be like, man, I've been out all day. I've been doing so much. I'll look at my steps. I'll be like, I've been sitting down all day because it feels like you're outside on the bike, you're doing something, but you are literally still sitting on your butt.
Yeah, and you see how often people are like just on the phone talking to someone standing around because there's so many people that are trying to get hold of them in a farm business. So I think people underestimate how much time like you say, how much they're actually doing when they're standing outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think strength training or fitness training is actually something that needs to go on top of the work that farmers are already doing and it plays a crucial role for them to perform, particularly longer term?
Yes, absolutely.
Short answer, yeah.
That is a beautiful question, and the answer is yes. Yeah. Detail. I know it's really hard because I know even though you're sitting on your ass all day on the bike, your day is long. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of demands on your brain as well as on your body. We know that demands on your brain actually use up physical energy. Mm-hmm. So we get to the end of the day, we're stuffed, we just want to sit on the couch. That is an understandable feeling. Once you hit 35, or once you hit your fourth decade, which is 30s, your muscle starts to decrease. And it kind of just goes away, down on a bit of an angle, and you can maintain that. And you can even stem that. You can stem that loss, or you can gain muscle if you do enough work. Once you hit your 60s, it will almost plummet. You can then slow the slide or maintain. But if you do not do strength training, you will lose muscle mass. Muscle mass is protective. It's helpful physiologically. It's good for our bones. It prevents osteoporosis. And we know that if we have osteoporosis and we have a fall, we're likely to break our hip. A broken hip is more likely, so you're 50% more likely to die 30% more likely to die and 50% more likely to be in a home in the next year. Mm-hmm. So muscle is actually life-preserving. And you'll have seen these once very robust people getting older and then all of a sudden looking like their clothes are wearing them and they're frail. This is why we do strength work. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be looking like your clothes are wearing you and being incapable of doing basic stuff like carrying your groceries, let alone being able to pick up lambs in the yards with your grandkids. So muscle's really important. Logistics are, I know it sucks and I know you actually have to put in some energy, but you need to do approximately 20 minutes 3 times a week of weight training. It needs to be heavy. Now, heavy is relative. Some people will say you need to do 3 to 8 reps or 3 to 5 reps. I don't like that, especially for people who are beginning. I actually don't even like it for me, because when you are getting to that really heavy stuff, 1, you've got to be really precise, and 2, there's not much margin for error. I like to get people started feeling really, really comfortable. So somewhere between 15 to 20 reps. You want to hit most body parts, and you want to do that 3 times per week. I like doing the whole body, because then if you do only 1 session a week and you're close to failure, then actually that's maintenance. Mm-hmm. So if we go minimum is 1 session a week, 20 minutes, close to failure, all body parts. Squat, hinge, push, pull, lunge, carry, and then maybe some accessory stuff. But that's hitting the big blocks. Mm-hmm. If you can do that once a week, you'll maintain if you're near to failure. 3 times a week, you should make some gains, because we want to gain muscle, or at least as we get older, just lose it more slowly. So it's like putting money in the bank for a holiday. You want to be just like maintaining or gaining until holiday time, at which time you want to be either like maintaining or losing more slowly. So you want money to be coming in while you're away, ideally. So we're looking at it like you're putting muscle as money in the bank. And so that's 3 sessions. You can do the same session 3 times a week. Your intensity needs to be like 8 out of 10. Muscle should be working 7 to 8. I could be nice. 7 to 8 out of 10. Muscle should be like working really hard. You shouldn't be getting any pain. This is not rehab we're talking about. This is just general moving. And you should be doing somewhere around 3 sets per session, 3 times a week for these. The squat, which we all know is squat. A hinge is like a deadlift, just the same as if you're dagging a sheep or leaning over a sheep in the race, leaning over the race in the cattle yards. These are all practical movements. A push, like a push-up, you can do it on a wall. You can do a bench press if you've got weights. A pull, so a bent over row or a pull-up type movement. A lunge, that's easy enough to explain. And then a carry. And you can just get 2 drench containers, part fill them and carry them. And then when you run out of puff, put them down, have a rest and carry them back, and you are done. It can be really simple. And you can do all of this at home, and you can start with body weight. And if you get to like 20 reps and you can keep going, just keep going till you're done if you're doing a body weight activity. Keep going until you can't go anymore. Boom, there's your program. It can be so much more simple than people make it out to be. Your muscles don't know what you're lifting, and your muscles don't know what you're wearing. So you just have to load them hard, don't get sore, rest so that you can do the next set really well. There's your session. It doesn't have to be hard.
It's all very practical. So in terms of if you are working out, is it better to do more of those functional compounding kind of processes that kind of directly relate to farming, like you've mentioned, or is it better to target specific areas?
I think if we're thinking about people who are just wanting general fitness for general life, let's like make it super simple. Let's do a few functional movements and call it good. Mm-hmm. If we make it too hard, people don't want to do it because it's too hard, it's too complex. I bet it's the same for you. If you're like, here's where we're going to start, they can do it. If you're like, here's where we're going to be in 5 years, let's try that, they're all just going to tell you to fuck off.
Yeah. That's true.
And so we might have people, so I've got a guy, he's in his late 70s and he's got his exercises and they're really simple and he does them every day. He puts some music on, he does his exercises, he doesn't want to get them changed, he doesn't want to progress them, he is fine. He's just going to do them most days for the rest of his life. And that's what we've got to get to. Mm. You've got to get to something that you are willing to do 3 times a week for the rest of your life. Because you can make changes to your muscles through to your 90s. They haven't studied anyone in their hundreds, but the assumption is there. So super important. Yes.
So how do we kind of shift that, the way farmers think about this? Because it's not just about being capable at what you're doing today. It's actually about that quality of life later on when you are 60 or 70 and you've got grandchildren. Yeah. That's the way I like to think about it, is what I do today is priming me for later in life to be able to do or live the life I want to live.
Yeah. So I think it's understanding this, because the gym has just been Jane Fonda getting skinny, or Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, that is what these people in their 60s and 70s, that's what the gym was for.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to get people to understand what the actual outcome is, so we're not trying to look a certain way. That's not what this is for. You can do that, and that's fine. If that's what you want to do, you can do that. And there are some amazing people doing amazing things there, and it's for their health. And if they want to look a certain way, that is so cool. But what we're talking about right here and now is we have to decouple aesthetics and function, because that's, I think, part of the issue, is that we've always talked about, oh, you're going to the gym, it's about what you look like. But that's not what it's about. If you are not capable of running your farm because you are not strong enough, what happens to your farm? You are the most important piece of infrastructure on your farm. And you maintain your bike, even if it's stupidly expensive and really annoying and you have to drive it hours to get it done. You're side by side, right? You maintain your bike, you maintain your tractor. You check on your electrics so that they're working, unless you're on our farm, which we haven't done since Gabriel. Sorry. You fix the latches on the gates that aren't latching. We need to look at our bodies as a piece of infrastructure, but the main piece of infrastructure, because it also holds the computer that has all of the information for how the farm is going to run. Yes, some of it's written down, but you can't write down that there's that little gully where there's a lamb that's always going to be hiding. So if your body can't physically do the job, then you're missing the main piece of infrastructure of your farm. So I think we have to look at it that way. Like, your body needs to be able to do the job. It needs to have the capacity, it needs to have the tolerance, and it needs to have some space so that your buffer is not like a tiny amount of extra. It's quite a lot extra than what you would normally do. So that if the stragglers do come in, you'll be like, easy, I can do 40 stragglers, and Storm can't come back and muster anymore. So it's not going to hit your tolerance with anything that might come up on the farm. Yeah, you might be tired, but we're not going to end up with overuse type injuries or pain because we've overloaded our body beyond its capacity.
I think that's an important point as well, is around the pain point, is how much of that actually comes back to the quality of someone's body's ability to move, and then that recovery, nutrition, all these things that come into it. How much of that pain can actually be managed by more than just actually the physical activity?
So when I see somebody, I've got a bit of a system that I have. So I look at their system. So I look at, what time do you go to bed? What time do you wake up? And do you wake up refreshed? Is that something we need to deal with? How do you fuel yourself when you wake up? How much protein are you taking on board? Because if you are not taking on board protein, your body will cannibalize your protein sources, your muscles, to run the physiological processes of being alive. How much are you hydrating yourself? Because the cartilage on the end of your bones is 70% water, like a banana or a liver. If it's dehydrated, it's going to be sticky, it's going to get hot spots. You're going to load it. Same with your tendons, same with your ligaments, same with your muscles, same with your brains. How are you hydrating yourself? Who are you connecting with? Because connection is one of the greatest indicators of a long, healthy, robust life. How are you moving just on day-to-day basis? Are you walking around? Are you getting stuff done? What kind of activity are you doing outside of exercise? And are you doing resistance training?
No, I think that's all actually really important, and it comes back to that kind of philosophy around the whole person physio, which is obviously very clear in what you're talking about here, and what you've referred back to throughout this is actually it's not just about the physical side, it's the whole person, and all these pieces of the puzzle fit together so that we can live a long and prosperous life.
Yeah, so we do that system. So if that's the first thing I look at, long and prosperous life. How are we going to get you back? How are you going to heal your injury if your body is not set up? So we set your body up with the system, and then we look at how it's integrating, how everything's moving together. Then we settle it down. We deload the area so everything else gets stronger, and then we reload the area. So if I was looking at long-term pain, I would look at all of those things. And each of them would vary depending on the human in front of me. But long-term pain, any pain, if you've got even just inflammation, that inflammation might be there, but the blood is running past it. It goes to your brain, it goes to your toes. And so we have to look at it all because it's impacting all of it.
It's just kind of that compounding effect that you get if it just remains unchecked.
Yeah, 100%. And so you could wonder why somebody's not recovering from their injury. Although the tissue healing will still be happening. Don't get me wrong, you can actually do a pretty good job without looking at all the stuff. But I'm not really interested in scratching the surface.
Yeah, I can tell. So if you're what's your advice for kind of, every farmer in New Zealand? What's 3 things that they can kind of focus on to consistently improve their health? Or if they're, dealing with some of these niggles and a bit of chronic pain, what should kind of 3 things they should be doing to focus on?
So fuel, making sure you're getting enough protein on board. And you probably think you're doing enough because you're having some meat with your dinner, but you need approximately, for the sake of argument, we're going to say 2 grams per kilo of body weight. So 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight per day. For me, that looks like 2 pub steaks. 5 eggs is 5 eggs is 30 grams of protein, and you need 30 grams in one go after 35 for your brain to acknowledge that it's got protein on board and actually start the processes because it's coming. So make sure you're eating enough protein. If you're like, holy shit, Storm, I can't do the maths. Well, you can do MJME per kilo of body weight. So you can do that maths actually. But if you're still like, oh, no, I can't, make every meal look like dinner. If you're still like, God, that's too much, make one other meal look like dinner. Dinner's normally good, so just make another meal look like dinner and just call it good. We don't have to be perfect. We can just get started. So I want you to do that. Make sure your wee is pale coloured after your first wee of the morning. After that, it has to be pale because long-term hydration can lead to kidney failure, and most people start going into that over 50 anyway. And then also cartilage, ligaments, muscles, brains. Make sure you're hydrated. And then I just want you to lift some weights 3 times a week, 20 minutes. That's it. That would be the bare minimum to make your life bigger, because what you'll find is as you get older, you start to lose stuff. But instead of admitting that you're losing stuff, you stop doing it. So instead of jumping in and going for a swim, you'll sit on the side of the pool because it's too hard to get out of the pool. It's too hard to get your arms over your head to swim, so you're just going to sit on the side with your feet in. And you just want to live a long, robust life. You want to be just kind of have at it until you can't. You don't want to fade out.
Yeah, exactly. I think on those points, one of the key ones for me is actually eating protein at breakfast. Like more protein at breakfast has made me stop being hungrier throughout the day. So you don't eat all the shit little snacky things that make you put on weight. And that's been a huge shift. And I can feel like I've got more energy throughout the day. Whereas I used to, peanut butter on toast when I was farming. How did that fuel me? Lucky I was young. But
and I am going to say something about this. If you are somebody who's running a farm, but you can't sort your own meals out, if you're the person who normally does that for you is not there, you are not a grown-up. It is not anybody else's role in their life to do something just because you can't. If you've got a great partnership and your mate does the food and you do something else, I have no problem with this. But when they are not there, you need to be a grown-up and you need to fuel your body responsibly because you are looking for the future. Of course, sometimes we're just going to have a sandwich for dinner, of course, but that should not be on the regular, especially not once like we're in our mid-30s. There's a lot less of a buffer and the body likes that change less. So be a grown-up, look after your own meals, and don't outsource your responsibility so much that you can't do it if the person who does it is not there.
And there's a certain satisfaction when you follow a new recipe and it actually comes out and tastes good. And then you keep doing it and you keep learning more and more. So, like, YouTube's a fantastic resource now, so you can learn anything.
And honestly, it doesn't even have to be that hard. We have basically a 2-week turnaround on meals for dinner. They're always pretty much the same. Sometimes that's another strategy, I think. Like, instead of going, oh gosh, what am I going to cook tonight? It's like, just do the same stuff. Chuck a different herb at it, and it's a completely different meal. Instead of having mashed potatoes, have roast potatoes. Yeah. Put some pasta with it instead. Like, it's a completely different meal. You just structure it slightly differently, but it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't even have to, if you like the same meal, I eat the same breakfast every single morning, 365 days of the year. Why can we not do that with a few dinners?
Yeah. I mean, I pretty much eat the same breakfast most mornings. Sometimes it might be rearranged slightly different with the eggs, but like we generally eat the same kind of 3 or 4 main meals every week. Just they're easy to cook, they're healthy. you don't have to think about what you're cooking when you go into the supermarket or getting something out of the freezer.
Yeah.
It simplifies everything.
I think there's that whole we've got to make it look good and whatnot. But again, if you bring it back down to the basics, like your strength work, you just need to make sure that you want to eat it and you're not completely bored of it. Getting it done is the most important thing. And then once you're in the habit of that, you can actually sharpen it up.
Yeah. So fueling's probably, I think, one of those underrated things in farming. I think a lot of people actually underfuel themselves for the work that they do.
Yeah. So one of my clients, he's a fencer. And so we had big, long talks about fueling. And so and I'm not going to say this is like ideal, and I am not a nutritionist, but I work really closely with a friend who's she's a registered nutritionist with a doctorate in nutrition. So any questions, I kind of get them off her. But I was like, you need more protein. He's like, all right. So he bought a whole bunch of protein bars, and then he would have protein shakes as well. So he'd take them and make them up because otherwise they're nasty, right? And then I have this concoction, which is creatine, collagen, and a sugar-free electrolyte that I really love. And I was telling him about it, and we find it's really most people find it's kind of helpful. Good for their brain. Creatine makes them feel a bit sharper. Creatine's good for your brain, tendons, ligaments, bone, and muscles. And collagen can be really helpful for healing. So we use it as a healing tonic type thing. Anyway, he came up, he's like, Storm, that fucking concoction, man, I just feel like shit if I don't have it. And so
it's true that,
yeah,
like when you have these things and then you stop taking them, you're like, oh, well, they were having such an effect, but you didn't know because it was gradual over time. And then you don't have it, you're like, oh, I can feel it almost instantly in my body. One thing I notice now is if I don't get enough protein, I can feel it, like the aches starting in my arm muscles and things like that if I've been pushing myself. So I'm like, I need to get protein in ASAP. And
protein's actually anti-inflammatory, so people who have anxiety as well, you can help it to bring anxiety down because part of the anxiety is often inflammation.
Wow. That's I did not know that. That's very interesting.
Well, that's another reason it's so important is we will take an anti-inflammatory even if we don't believe in medication.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, well, protein is anti-inflammatory and you will take an anti-inflammatory. So how about you just add some protein and we'll be good. On that, women also need to know that estrogen is anti-inflammatory. And then when that kind of goes walkabout in your 30s and then does weird shit for the rest of that perimenopause time, it is anti-inflammatory. So when it's gone, it's pro-inflammatory. And so we need to be aware that hormones can have a massive impact, especially for women from their 30s right the way through. And getting some help on that is also really, really important. And it's not spoken about enough. It's not understood enough. But it's an anti-inflammatory, so of course it's important. And no wonder you feel like absolute shit when the hormones that have been there supporting you for the last 35, 40 years just suddenly decide that they are no longer in the chat and they're gone. So I think that needs to be definitely noted, especially for women. And menopausal hormonal therapy can be incredibly helpful. You may not even feel the symptoms, but the estrogen and progesterone are vanishing anyway. So the stuff is happening. There's changes to your tendons, ligaments, cartilage, bone, brain. These changes are happening whether you can feel them or not, so it is worth getting help from your GP. You can't get this tested with a blood test, but it's a clinical diagnosis. So worth finding somebody who can help. Your GP may say, no, just ignore them and find somebody who is specialising in women's hormones.
Yeah. Is this a conversation that is starting to gain more momentum? Like people are starting to talk about it a bit more?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Women are wondering why on earth things that they could once upon a time cope with physically and mentally are no longer able to because progesterone is calming and that's gone. And also they've been carrying this massive load for years and then the hormones that were assisting them in doing that are no longer there, but the requirement is still. And they're wondering why they're feeling burnt out, cranky, why their joints, ligaments, everything hurts. Why they're feeling like they've got brain fog, and this wasn't spoken about. It absolutely happened. It's been happening for millennia, and there is a evolutionary reason for it, which I won't get into because, as you can imagine, we'll be here for another hour. But there's a reason for it. We just have some skills now where we can talk about it. And again, I think that this is part of our evolution, is that we are now able to manage our emotions, and we can talk about emotions, and we can talk about how we're feeling. And so now we have the capacity to start doing things about it, whereas our parents, and definitely their parents, had no ability to do that. And then there's other things we could talk, like patriarchal medicine. Let's not even go into there. But so, and this is not that about male doctors. This is about how medicine's been created so that the training has been based around males being normal and women being the other, and men not understanding and then not being able to listen. And so that's been pushed to the side. And that means that the training of both male and female doctors has meant that women haven't been well understood, and their symptoms have been brushed off, and they've been told that they're hysterical or anxious or stressed, and that's why maybe they should just lose some weight. But that is not the fault of the physicians. That is the fault of the system. So that is why when you find a woman GP that says that she doesn't believe that you're a terrible person. This is what she's been taught. So yes, this discussion is getting louder, and I believe it needs to, because women have been dismissed. They've had surgeries to fix this. The suicide rate of women at this time goes through the roof. Divorces are high. It's not the fault of the woman. This is her chemistry. And so if we can have these conversations and lead some change and learn some other things about it, then we might be able to change how people are going through this. Because it's really, really important. It's really important for me as a physio in terms of rehab, but also because I'm treating these whole humans. I want them to be able to go to sleep. I don't want them to be awake at 3:14 every morning and not being able to go to sleep until 10 minutes before the alarm goes off. I don't want that for them. So for me, it's important to have these conversations. I can't prescribe, I can't diagnose, but I've got friends who can. So I just send them away that way. So I think it's really important. And I know it's really uncomfortable for some people talking about women's stuff, but we just need to get over ourselves, because we have animals. We talk about animals in heat. We help them with their birth. So we need to be able to help our humans as well, because they're the other, because often there's two people in a farming partnership. And so we need to actually acknowledge the other piece of the infrastructure as well, and what might be going on in terms of repairs and maintenance for them. If we're thinking of of infrastructure, which I know there's like issues there, but we're not going to go into that because I'm not meaning it that way. Don't come at me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I tell you what, I've just learned a lot. So that was brilliant. And I think, like, as you do see in a lot of farming businesses, the women are actually playing quite a key role in managing a lot of the finances and the decision making, and actually getting all the wheels greasing. Like, I think they've been underappreciated for a very long time of what the role that they're actually doing. And you still see people turn up and go, "Oh, I want to talk to the farmer," and like the female was still the farmer in that situation as well. That drives me wild. I like, what decade are you living in? That's a can of worms in itself.
Should we talk about this on a whole other podcast? Because
potentially.
But there are women out there who are carrying it all because their partner is incapable of doing anything other than the farming.
Yeah.
And when she starts getting cranky, they're like, "Oh, she's being bossy and she's being cranky, but she's running the whole friggin' thing. He's just the worker, really." And we need to just change the conversations and change our perspective on the load and the work that the women are doing, because while it might not be physical hard work, the mental load of having all of the things in your brain and making sure everything happens, not just in the house, but in the community and on the farm, that's something that it's massive, and it's not nothing, and it needs to be acknowledged. And then one of the things is, a lot of women, when they get to perimenopause, they actually feel like their memory's going, and they feel really stressed. They can't hold all these things in their brain. So it feels like you're actually becoming unwell. And this is not the case, but it feels like it. And if you don't know that perimenopause can do this, you might feel like you are getting some kind of dementia disease. And that would be stressful in itself.
Oh, absolutely. I think you've summed it up beautifully. I'll pivot slightly here, but I guess this might be one of your driving reasons why you've decided to start putting out your knowledge, etc., on social media and kind of showing your real life, but also the practicalities of what you do as a physio and everything that you're learning. Has this been one of your driving reasons to share this sort of knowledge?
So the reason I started was I read a piece of research that said that rural health outcomes are as poor as Māori health outcomes. And I thought about what the reasoning might be behind that. And I was trying to get, I've got 4 kids, I've got a farm. How do I get to a physio appointment when my kids aren't really town kids? I can't like leave them sitting in, colouring in the waiting room for a half an hour or an hour while I have an appointment and there's nobody else to take them. And I thought, how can I get around this? If it's happening to me, it must be happening to people everywhere. And so I thought, how can I do this? And so I was like, can we do online physio? Is it going to even work? Because I thought it was my hands that fixed people. That's what I'd always been told. And that's how I was trained. It's all about what I feel. And yes, in person is completely like it's got an extra set of magic. But I was like, okay, how can we do this? What can we do? And so I made up a framework of how it was going to work. And my initial ones were taking 90 minutes, my initial assessments, because that's how long it took to get all the information while I was online. And then I spoke to 2 of my friends. They both work for Amazon, but we don't hold that against them. They work in the, like, I don't know, not in the sales part, but like the, I don't know, thinking part. And they're like, Storm, what could you do to make it a little bit less? Could you like get some information before the appointment? So people fill out a form before they come and see me. It saves half an hour. So we have an initial assessment that's an hour. And so we've evolved that and the programs are working pretty well. But that's why I started, is because I was like, rural people, I love rural people. They're my kind of people. I like working with them. I like the practicality. I can talk to them. They don't mind if I swear or forget my words, and I can use really nice metaphors that make sense to them because I know what their world is like. I might not be as good at farming as them, but I have some ideas. And I wanted to find a way so that they weren't being left behind and that they were getting quality help, because that's the other thing, is not only getting into the travel and then the logistics of leaving the farm, is then you get into somebody and if you're in a small town and you're like, I just don't like you. Like, you're not even a human I like to be around, let alone whether they are a quality provider or not. And so I wanted to give people options so that they could get help. I like to think I'm quality. Not everybody's going to love me, but that's okay. There's other people out there too. And also just making sure that if something happens, like, I don't know, they need a surgeon. I'm like, okay, cool, you need a surgeon. Send the letter. Don't hear from the surgeon. All right. You haven't heard from the surgeon. Right. I'm going to call the surgeon. I'm going to chase them up. I'm going to make sure you get that appointment. Okay. That appointment hasn't happened. I'm going to find another surgeon for you. I'm going to find someone else for you because I am like a terrier. And I'm like, no, this is how health should work like this. You shouldn't have to chase. Sometimes I'm like, okay, here's what you need to do. I'm going to give you the letter. I want you to take this letter to whoever you need to take it to. Because I haven't actually got all the time in the world to chase people. But I can give people skills and to say, here's what you need to do. Or if you're going to the hospital, I'm like, you are too sore for me to treat you. You need to go to hospital now. And they're like, no, I'm probably okay. And I'm like, okay, so when you get to hospital, here's what you need to say. I know that you're not okay because you're saying it's a 7 out of 10, but you can't, like, stand up straight. So how about when you get to hospital, this is how you say it. Because people are sent to hospital. Farmers are sent to hospital a lot. And then they're sent home because they're like, oh, he said it was fine. I'm like, did we not see farmer written across the top? There's a whole different pain scale. And so literally I dropped, this was outside of work. I ended up dropping a rodeo cowboy, came off his bull, landed on his head, did a scorpion, and the ambulance couldn't take him to, I don't know why. They just grabbed me out of the crowd, not because they knew who I was, just because I'm some random. Anyway, took this rodeo cowboy to hospital and I rang my friend. I was like, and she's like, they need to do spinal precaution. She manages the hospital. So I was like, hey, I've got this guy, he's landed on his head, needs spinal precautions. Anyway, he was like, oh, it's a 7 out of 10. He's a cowboy. He's a cowboy 7 out of 10, everybody. And they were like, okay, well, he said he's decided he didn't want to take painkillers, so he has to walk in. And I was like, well, that's literally not my monkey's not my circus, but I don't like what you're doing. Anyway, it turns out fractured vertebrae, fractured rib, ruptured spleen, and punctured lung. So they should have done. So here's because people are so tough, like we were talking about right at the start, and they push through, then actually, even when it's serious, because they have been so tough for so long, they actually can't feel what's going on in their body because they have ignored their body for years. So their body screaming at them still doesn't even feel like anything serious and won't be taken seriously. So when we go to hospital, we need to make sure, hey, look, I'm not sleeping. It hurts to stand on it, like really, really practical stuff. And normally I broke my leg once and I walked on it for a week, but this is really sore. And getting somebody to listen and hear you, and I think taking a support person is really helpful for that because the support person will be like, they're taking pain relief and they never take pain relief. Like you need that to get the help. So I think that's just another part of a reason why I do my job is so I can help people get the help they need. Even if I'm not the right person, I can help them explain things differently, understand what needs doing, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of that. I feel like I've got a high pain tolerance, so I've done the same thing myself. Did you ever imagine your career would be like sitting at this kind of intersection of agriculture and health?
Yeah, it kind of is.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's like, I guess when you probably started being a physio, you didn't see this is probably where you'd end up. Oh,
I was going to be like an international sports physio.
Yeah.
That was my plan. After I was an international athlete, which did not happen, I was going to be an international sports physio. I did national, but not international. I did a few international teams, but in New Zealand, so it was disappointing.
Yeah.
That was this is not what I imagined, but it's the best.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it in you. You can see the energy behind and the actual the love for what you do and the people that you work with, which is fantastic to see. If you could change one thing about, I guess, the farming industry and how it approaches physical health or injury prevention, what would it be?
I think people have to realise that they have to pay the piper at some stage. And so going to the gym and being strong and eating well might be really inconvenient now, but it's going to be really inconvenient later when you have to stop farming or you can't get out of the way quick enough to work with stock in the diamond, or like you get told, no, Mum, no, Dad, I don't want you in the gate while we're drafting cattle anymore. Like that would be mighty inconvenient. So we actually just have, I can't think of one thing, Conan, because it's the whole lot. But we need to stop. So you're going to have some kind of inconvenience at some stage. You're going to have to, it's expensive to buy or eat more protein because it's expensive, but it's also expensive not being able to work. It's an inconvenience to go to the gym 3 times a week for 20 minutes, but it's a real inconvenience not being able to walk across the paddock if your grandkid is playing on a flat paddock and you have to walk right across the other side of the field to watch them play sport, but you can't walk that far. That's an inconvenience.
Yeah, that's a very powerful way to finish this up. I generally finish all my podcasts with one kind of quick fire question for all my guests, and it's, what is one belief or principle that keeps you grounded no matter what season you're in?
It all comes right in the end, and if it's not come right, it's not the end.
I love that. That is a very good way to finish this. Thank you very much for your time today, Storm. I've really enjoyed having you on and talking about a whole host of topics that I think don't get talked about enough in farming here in New Zealand, and I guess farming globally as well. It seems to be a common theme. If listeners are wanting to connect with you or learn more about what you do, what's the best place to go and find you?
So I've got a free resource for farmers. If you go to my webpage, and I'll give you all of this so you can put it in the notes. If you go to my webpage and there's a warm-up that you can get for free on my page, so you can go into that. I've got a couple of other free resources there. You can just grab them too. That's thatfarmingphysio.com and just go to free resources, I think is the name of the tab. It's a new website, so I don't know.
Yeah.
If you like social media, or if you're on social media, even if you don't like it, I'm on Facebook, Storm That Farming Physio, or I am on Instagram, Storm, and then it's LBR, because I did this ages ago and I haven't changed it, _ That Farming Physio. Those are the best places, to find me. But also I do a newsletter every week, which is way more in-depth because we don't have an attention span anymore. So my Instagram things are really short, and then my newsletter and my blog have way more depth. You can imagine how fun I am at parties, but that's where to find me. So newsletters, free resources, and social media.
Awesome. I'll link all those below for anyone who's wanting to look, but definitely worth checking out her Instagram or Facebook, whichever one you use. There's some great videos on there. But thanks once again for your time today, Storm. I've really enjoyed this chat. Learned quite a few things as well, which is always good.
Wonderful.
Awesome.